Number one is going to be an appropriate calorie deficit. Notice I didn't say the extreme fat loss challenge forever, right? Hey everybody, what's going on? Coach William Grazione here, owner of The Educated Dieter. In today's video, we are going to be talking about what is appropriate for you. The three key areas we're going to be talking about is what's the appropriate calorie deficit, what's the appropriate training stimulus, and what's the appropriate amount of cardio. Now, some of you may have seen this transformation image that I posted just the other day on my social media account. The very things that help us lose body fat and build muscle are actually relatively simple. Oftentimes, a lot of people have a tendency to make these things so much harder than they actually are. And here's what I mean by this. We oftentimes get caught up in distraction. We're watching all these different things on social media. We're following a bunch of different influencers. We're seeing, various things in the store. We're looking at grocery store ads. We're walking into GNC and we're getting sold all these different types of products. Your girlfriend's brother just started a juice detox cleanse. Your friend up the street's intermittent fasting while your mom's doing keto. You got a ton of different distractions. So hopefully what I can do in this video is I'm going to make this concept of losing body fat, building muscle as simple as it needs to be. A lot of people have a tendency to hop from one thing to another thing, and they essentially put themselves in a position where they're always just distracted. Now, something else that people do is they go way too extreme, way too fast. If you're not used to doing much, there's no reason for you to be training 7 days a week. If you're not used to doing much, there's no reason for you to be doing cardio every single day. If you're not doing much, there's no reason for you to go on a salad only, no carb, no fat diet. We only need to apply the appropriate stimulus per each one of those categories that I'm going to be talking about, okay? Now, oftentimes those of you in the past who have gone way too extreme, way too fast, you've likely found yourself in a position where you start to develop some negative biofeedback symptoms. Here's what I mean by that. Maybe you're starting to experience a lot of bloating and stomach discomfort, right? Or maybe you're starting to feel lethargic and fatigued all the time. Maybe you're starting to notice that you can't sleep very well at night. Maybe you've been too reliant on stimulants. Maybe you're so tired you're relying on stimulants literally for everything because you have no natural energy production anymore. If that's you, I would highly recommend that you take a step back, analyze what the problem is, and find a functional nutrition expert that can help you out with that. Number one is going to be an appropriate calorie deficit. So here's what I mean by an appropriate calorie deficit. Notice I didn't say the extreme fat loss challenge forever, right? The thing you want to think about is, what do I need to apply to my body in order to lose maybe 1% of my total body weight per week? So for me, I'm 188 pounds. If I was trying to lose 1% of my body weight per week, I'd be looking at losing about 1.8, 1.9 pounds per week. And that would be as probably the most I would be looking at losing. In all fairness, I'd probably be totally fine with losing 1 pound per week as long as I knew that I was consistently making some level of progress and I knew my body was working with me, not against me. Individuals that their body always feels like it's working against them, no matter what they do, they can't lose body fat. In many cases, these are going to be weight loss resistance cases in which that's where the functional nutrition side would come in. So what's the appropriate calorie deficit? Let's try to paint this picture for you. Are you somebody right now that's eating maybe 1,800 calories a day, 2,000 calories per day? Great. How to find an appropriate calorie deficit would be, let's go ahead and let's make a subtraction. Let's go ahead and reduce by 400, 500, maybe 600 calories, depending on how aggressive you want to be, right? And see what happens over the course of that week. Now be mindful that the overall goal here is only to lose about 1 to 2 pounds per week. Once we've found what that appropriate calorie deficit is, we can stay there until our body really starts to adapt or plateau. Now be mindful that for everybody, plateaus are gonna happen. This is why we have our Guide to Dieting Smarter resource. It's a free ebook, free for download on our website, where basically it teaches you how to incorporate single-day refeeds, multiple-day refeeds, 3-day refeeds, diet breaks, and maintenance phases into your diet. Next up, we have what's the appropriate training stimulus. So obviously everybody's gone through COVID, right? For the last over 2 years now, a lot of people were pulled out of the office, sat down in a desk, and now they're just hammering away on their keyboard and they're really not moving, right? They're probably not going to the gym as much, and as a direct side effect of that, they've gained 20, 30, 40, or 50 pounds, right? And so think about this. If you're only going to the gym maybe once or twice per week, how much do you really think you have to exercise in order to see some level of progress? That just because you're following your famous fitness influencers here, and they're training 6 or 7 days a week, it does not mean that you yourself need to be training 6 or 7 days per week. What it means is, how much exercise do I need to apply to start to see some level of progress? With training programming, what we're looking at in terms of progress is very simply, can they execute their movement patterns well? And are they able to progressive overload over the course of time? It would be a much better idea to try to optimize your gym performance for maybe 3 days per week when you're not used to doing much, to thinking you have to go to the gym every single day, and then you reach that level of burnout, and then you're stuck in a position where you're saying, I just can't keep up with this. So what's the appropriate training stimulus? As little as you need to do while still achieving what your goal is. You are an N of one, you're special in your own right, and you need to start where you need to start to make sure that you can adhere to the protocols that are being provided to you. I was actually having a good conversation with a client of mine just the other day, and one of her biggest concerns was, Will, we're starting a fat loss phase. What am I supposed to do with my training? Because I've been doing all this to build muscle over the last 6 or 8 months. What am I supposed to do now? The very thing that helped you build all this muscle and all this new strength is the very thing that's going to help you maintain it and keep it. So when anybody tells you, hey, we're going into a fat loss phase, we're going to switch it up, we're going to go to sets of 20 and sets of 30, we're going to be burning out on everything. That is not an adequate stimulus for muscular preservation. Be mindful that when we are lifting very heavy sub-maximal loads, that our nervous system's required to be able to send signals out to all of our motor units so that we can use all of them to lift these types of loads. That same stimulus is what's required to help you keep the muscle during a fat loss phase. Now, the last thing is going to be appropriate level of cardiovascular exercise. So when we're talking about cardiovascular exercise, what we're thinking about again is, what is the least amount of cardio that I can do and still make some level of progress, okay? So think about that. If you're not doing any cardio right now, and maybe you're barely even walking, let's just try to get steps to 5,000 a day to start with, and that will be your foundation. Now, when we're talking about cardio, we're going to talk about 3 different types. One is low intensity steady state, moderate intensity steady state, and high intensity interval cardio, okay? Now, most people can get by with just doing low intensity steady state, but I have worked with a lot of athletes in the past. Maybe you were a previous athlete, maybe you played college ball or high school ball or something like that, and maybe you love being athletic. You can completely incorporate high intensity intervals, but in many cases, starting off, I wouldn't recommend maybe more than 1 or 2 sessions per week. And the same thing applies with low intensity cardio. The most I'd probably apply to start off with, maybe 2 sessions, 25 or 30 minutes per week, and you can obviously build up from there. But you're going to notice a trend here, and it's, we have to start somewhere and then do it intelligently. Because let's just say that this fat loss phase is 3 months long. If you decide to throw the kitchen sink at yourself, you're going to beat yourself up way faster than you should, and that's going to lead to you stalling out or plateauing faster. So what we would rather do is basically start you lower and do what's necessary and gradually build you up from there. I hope you all found this video very helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for me, just go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below. I appreciate your time, and remember to ask yourself, what is appropriate for me and my goals?